What a glorious afternoon. Miss Pickrell, you dialed up a wonderful, wonderful weather. Thank you. We have Convocation each fall to mark the official start of school. It is a time for us to come together and officially celebrate a new beginning. As we launch our 179th year as a school this evening, we participate in one of the many traditions and annual rites of passage that comprise the long and notable history of this school. Most of you know that Williston Northampton School takes its name from two schools that merged in 1971, Williston Academy and up the road, the Northampton School for Girls. The Angelus was presented to Northampton School by the Student Council in 1952. Some say it became the heart of the Northampton School for Girls campus. The Angelus is a bell which on it is inscribed, "For quiet thought." It was sounded every afternoon, at which time students and teachers paused for a moment of silent reflection. Maria Bergi Dwight Levascante, class of 1952, said at its dedication that the ringing of the Angelus was a call to remind us of the necessity of thought. There is much to think about in a brief minute of our own. Now permanently installed in the residential quadrangle, it has become a tradition to sound the Angelus at Convocation and commencement. As we sound the Angelus, I invite you to join me in a few moments of quiet thought. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and a special welcome to students, faculty, guests, former faculty, and especially our honored guest speaker, Bryant McBride, class of 1984, to the Williston Northampton's official opening of the 179th school year. I have to say, it feels like a great first week that we've had, and you guys have been generating incredible school spirit already. The activities fair on Wednesday set records for sign-ups, and I want to give a special shout out to Gabe and Sarah of the Wildest Cats and Elila for the Sustainability Club. Well done, you guys. For the newest members of Williston, as Mrs. Noble just shared, convocation ceremonies mark the beginning of our new academic year. The verb convoke literally means to convene or come together. It's a ceremonial bookend, the other half of which is commencement, right here, same place, 1,500 chairs, for the great class of 2020. Last year at this podium, I encouraged everyone to let their guard down by sharing some of their personal stories, because doing that takes trust and openness, and those are both essential ingredients of building community. This year, as I suggested in our opening assembly, my hope is that you open your minds so that your hearts will follow. But developing an open mindset, like everything else you do, requires effort and practice. A close friend of mine in North Carolina and a gifted teacher used to say to me, "It's all about chocolate, strawberry, or vanilla." Using the very American metaphor of ice cream flavors, my friend Tiny Salzano made the point that taste is subjective. Whether you prefer Osaka to Casara, or Riffs to the Daily Operation, or Lil Nas X to Cardi B, your opinion is largely a matter of taste. It's your opinion. But what about the world of ideas that you encounter at Williston? What about discussion of global warming in AP Environmental Science, where statistical analysis and mathematical modeling are critical skills? What about discussing whether you think The Great Gatsby is a better book than The House on Mango Street? Or what about debating whether President McKinley's decision to take the country to war against Spain was a precursor to the modern imperial presidency? Are your opinions in those kinds of discussions simply based on a matter of taste? I recently read an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education by a professor from Case Western Reserve University who spoke about, quote, fear of judgment in the humanities. He made the point that as soon as you judge something as better than something else, you are exposed to being judged yourself. Who made you king? Professor Clooney argues that the humanities in higher education have for decades done themselves a disservice by insisting that any one opinion is as good as any other. He calls this mindset, quote, dogmatic egalitarianism. And I agree with him that we seem to be at a point in history where expert analysis has come to be a bad thing, and that being an expert makes you an elitist. What does that have to do with you guys? I hope that by the end of this first week of classes at Williston, you have all gleaned that professional expertise has its place in our 179-year-old academic institution, and that you students are surrounded by Williston's faculty who are experts in their fields. When Ms. Cody translates a Horace ode, she's doing so as a scholar of her subject, relying on years of training, practice, and peer review. When Mr. Porter leads his social psych class on how to interpret the data of eyewitness testimony validity studies, he's an expert. When I watch one of Ms. Talbot's Saifu's hockey practices, I don't expect Maddie or Bryn to say, "That's not how you do it." You guys are surrounded by expert faculty in virtually everything you do at Williston. Quoting Professor Clooney once more, he notes that becoming an expert demands, quote, the mastery of a body of specialized knowledge acquired through an extended process of education and training. An extended process of education and training, end quote. Accomplishing expertise, in other words, is what distinguishes expert judgment from mere private opinion. And it's a learning process that lasts a lifetime. As you embark on the second week of your Williston journey, you are all in the process of becoming more expert in subjects or extracurricular areas. And that is a good thing. You are here to develop a full set of cognitive tools so that you can form and defend judgments about the most pressing issues that you will face. I hope you take full advantage of that privilege over the next weeks and months. And now it's my pleasure to welcome to the podium a budding Greek and Latin scholar, class of 2020 President Nat Markey.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Good evening, everyone. If this is your first convocation, welcome to Williston. Old-timers, welcome back. And to the outstanding class of 2020. Let's get ready for senior year. As you've all heard, this year marks Williston's 179th convocation. It's also the 95th anniversary of the Northampton School for Girls, all of which adds up to a whole lot of speeches to sit through. It's my 6th convocation, and people have said it before, but as a little middle schooler, I could not have pictured myself standing all the way up here. I mean, even if I had been on stage then, I wouldn't have been up here, more like here. I remember being in middle school, sitting in the audience on this very occasion, and hearing Nate Gordon, the student body president at the time, tell a story about how when he was in middle school, an upper schooler complimented his shoes, sending Nate's confidence through the roof. The anecdote was especially meaningful to me because a year earlier, when I was in 7th grade, Nate had complimented my shoes at cross-country practice. And the attention from such a superhuman figure made me feel like I belonged here. By the way, those shoes were a women's 8 because all the men's shoes at the running store were massive on me. But this speech isn't about shoe sizes or about long-gone seniors. It's about our growth now, while we move through this great school. As extraordinary as our academic experience here is, our human interactions outside the classroom are just as influential. Personally, I may have physically grown 10 inches since 7th grade, but I think I've grown even more mentally and emotionally, like 20 mind inches at least. A big part of the credit for that growth goes to the wonderful people I've encountered here. At Williston, we have a unique opportunity to get to know and learn from all kinds of people. My 9th grade year, I made the acquaintance of a kid named Stephen Wong. My first impression was, Stephen seems like a nice guy, and then, wow, Stephen is really smart. You might even say he's dumb smart. But it wasn't until 10th grade, when I saw Stephen perform at the Winter Warmer concert, that I learned he was also insanely talented on the guitar. That same year, I met another classmate who could absolutely shred, Cam Lawrence. Stephen, Cam, and I all grew up in different towns, in different states, and, in Stephen's case, on a different continent. Had we all gone to our local high schools, I never would have experienced their talents. Stephen and Cam play very different styles of guitar, and we benefit from hearing both. I think this is a great metaphor for our community. Imagine each of us is a different musical instrument. Some of us are guitars, some are cellos, some keyboards, some woodwinds, so on and so forth. I actually picture myself as a didgeridoo. We all sound different, bringing diverse experiences, perspectives, and personalities, but we each contribute a beautiful, valuable voice. An orchestra composed of only vuvuzelas wouldn't sound nearly as interesting or as vibrant. In non-musical terms, our diversity is not an obstacle to community. It is our strength. We're not ninth graders and 12th graders, international and domestic, boarding and day, football players and actors, or even tandem and Duncan. We are Williston, which means we are all these things, and so much more, united. When Dylan breaks 1 million water polo records, that is Williston. But when Jack and Peter help make a full-on robotic arm, that is Williston also. When everyone sings their hearts out in the musical, when Tucker and Zach absolutely jam at assembly, when Pooja writes a killer Willistonian article, whenever anyone runs a Why Not Speak Day workshop, reaches out to someone they don't know so well, or just goes out of their way to be friendly, that's all Williston. And when some new ninth grader contributes some amazing thing we can't even predict yet, that will be Williston too. So fellow Wildcats, let's make this coming year the most memorable of the 179. Let's play those instruments, baby. Let's shred. Whether this is your first year or your sixth, your voice is equally important here. Reach out, get involved, ask questions, join more clubs than you could ever attend. Paint that lion, ring that bell, spread good vibes, and do it all in your own unique way. And class of 2020, we're the leaders of this school now. It's our time to inspire. So go ahead, compliment a middle schooler. You might just find yourself in a future convocation address, and you'll certainly make Williston just that much stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. That was pretty amazing talk. I think you got your college essay all set, too. One of the special traditions of Convocation is to honor faculty who have committed 25 years of their lives to Williston by presenting them with a Williston chair. This year we have 2 such tenured faculty members. Senor Eugenio Garcia, eminent Spanish teacher who on a personal note was a beloved teacher of both of our children, Cameron and Robbie Hill, has worn many hats during his tenure, teaching up and down the Spanish curriculum, chaperoning trips abroad, coaching, and above all, being a consummate advisor. In fact, Mr. Korakowski, in his role leading the advising program, said that Senor Garcia has a cult following with his advisees, and he is known for the incredibly caring connections that he makes with his students. Please join me in thanking and congratulating Senor Eugenio Garcia. Our second recipient today, Matt Sawyer, arrived in 1994, a freshly minted graduate of Amherst College, where he was a 2-sport varsity standout. It is unusual for rookie teachers to assume the head coaching reins of a varsity sport in a NEPSAC school. It's even more unusual for one to be coaching the exact same team 24 years later. He is approaching lofty heights at Williston as he is second on the all-time win list to the legendary Mr. Carpenter, for whom our field is named. Mr. Sawyer's English teaching and coaching are two sides of the same coin. He possesses an unwavering dedication to each student with whom he works. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Mr. Sawyer. Now, can I ask Mr. Peter Valine, Dean of Faculty, to award another special recognition chair. Unfortunately, it was left off our program, but it's very much as significant as all the others.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure this afternoon to present the Hagedorn Family Chair to a member of the Williston faculty. The Hagedorn Family Chair was established in 2006 by Robert Hagedorn, class of 1976, and his wife Melody. They were parents of Gregory Hagedorn, class of 2006. Robert was class of 1976, excuse me. This year's recipient of the Hagedorn Chair is a popular and dedicated colleague who joined the Williston faculty in 2011. In the classroom, his English teachers experience a safe and engaging environment in which to learn and grow. His students enjoy his energy and his enthusiasm, while simultaneously finding his approach to learning both accessible and effective. A strength of his teaching is the strong connections he fosters with each of his students. He takes the time to inquire about them and then listens attentively to their responses. As one of his students observed, he gets to know each of us on a personal level and understands how to handle each of us differently. In creating his lesson plans, he models the risk-taking that he asks his students to emulate. He challenges his students by providing provocative prompts that require them to discover and explore both essential and existential questions. His pedagogy increasingly utilizes student-facilitated and student-centered discussions. By muting his voice and not biasing the conversations with his own interpretations, he empowers each of his students to find their own voice and to actively push themselves to think deeply and develop their own understandings. He supports his students through a thoughtful process of continual and individualized feedback, while also emphasizing the health and vitality of the collective class experience. His department head, Mrs. Sawyer, writes that his classroom is a collaborative and dynamic space in which students are willing to make a mistake or try out a new theory. His colleagues enjoy his energy and his sense of humor. While he is often in the middle of the banter on the third floor of the schoolhouse, he's also often at the center of rich conversations about teaching and learning. He is eager and thoughtful in helping to mentor new colleagues and is generous in sharing resources and ideas with all the members of his department. His colleagues respect his probing questions that explore the rationale for choosing text and that challenge basic assumptions and goals. His growth as an educator stems from his constant commitment to self-improvement. He earned a master's degree from Middlebury College Breadloaf School of English, which nurtured his love and passion for literature. He's taken the initiative to attend workshops at Bard College's Institute of Writing and Thinking, with the result of adopting more free writing and visual teaching strategies in his classroom. His participation in the Phillips Exeter Humanities Institute resulted in his leadership in encouraging and refining the use of the Harkness method of student-directed discussions. In a self-evaluation, he stated that a primary goal of his work at Williston is to assist the development of thoughtful and empathetic human beings who are able to clearly articulate their beliefs and ideas. In addition to striving toward this goal in the classroom, the dorm, and the athletic arena, this passion is also seen through his work in the organization Boys to Men and in his commitment to the education of young males in this community on what it means to be a good man. When this Hagedorn recipient arrived back on the campus in 2011, he was actually returning to his alma mater. In his postgraduate year at Williston in 1997, he was inspired by his teachers and his experiences in this community, and he acknowledges that this opportunity was life-changing. He's now passionately immersed in paying that experience forward, and we're thankful that he has come full circle to motivate and to inspire our current students. It's my privilege to announce the new recipient of the Hagedorn Family Chair, Kyle Hanford.
It is a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Bryant McBride, Williston class of 1984. Bryant McBride arrived at Williston in 1983 as a postgraduate from Sault Ste. Marie in Ontario, Canada, and he quickly left his mark in athletics as an all-Winnepsa all-star midfielder playing for Coach Ray Brown. He then won MVP honors in ice hockey, helping Williston to the New England tournament. After graduation, Mr. McBride attended West Point, where he played on the varsity soccer and hockey teams before he decided to transfer to Trinity College to complete his undergraduate education. At Trinity, he was a member of 3 championship hockey teams and was named All-NESCAC as a senior. Mr. McBride continued to make his mark in the sports world, most notably as Vice President of Business Development for the NHL from 1991 to 2000. Now, an entrepreneur in the tech industry, runner of over 23 marathons, it's hard for me to say that, husband and father of 3, including 2 daughters who need to get admissions materials before he leaves, Mr. McBride will share with us what I know will be a compelling story. Please join me in a warm Williston welcome for Bryant McBride.
Thank you. In 1984, on July 24th, 1984, during my plebe or freshman year at the United States Military Academy at West Point, I found myself on a gurney being wheeled into an ambulance, wondering what had just happened. It was 54 days after I had received my diploma, standing right here. One of the things I vividly remember was a conversation that the orderly had with my mom as I was laying there. And he said, "Your son has hurt his knee playing soccer. He's gonna have surgery in the morning. He's fine. And most importantly, don't come. There's nothing you can do to help." So from the heights of standing here at graduation to that, it was a pretty fast fall. The good news is the surgery went well. I've been able to, I played 3 years of college hockey on my knee. I ran a bunch of marathons. To this day, it still feels great. So that's the good news. What I didn't realize at that moment, though, was that in the next 48 hours after that surgery, I would learn things that would serve as bedrock, as the foundation that I draw from literally every day throughout my career and still. After the surgery, I was told that, it was about a day and a half afterwards, that I was going to be brought back to convalesce, to heal with my classmates. And the orderly said to me, we're going to leave tomorrow morning at about 5 o'clock, be ready to go. I was in a cast from my hip down to my ankle. Middle of July, sweltering hot, sticky, just really, really hard to be in a cast. He picked me up, got me in the Jeep, drove me around to a part of West Point called the Area. It's the hub, it's the center of West Point, surrounded by huge, beautiful old buildings, 6-story tall, that is the nerve center of cadet life and activity. And he dropped me off, put me on a curb like that, and said, wait right here, I'm gonna park the Jeep, I'm gonna be back with a wheelchair. I'll pick you up and I'll bring you up and make sure you're all set up. And I'm sitting there, and literally as he turns that corner, from the other direction comes a 2-star general. And I immediately see him and he sees me. And one of the first things you're taught at West Point is to stand and salute a superior officer. And I couldn't. I struggled. I was like a turtle on his back. I just couldn't lift myself off that curb to get up and salute my boss's 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 boss. You know, it was ridiculous that this guy was coming at me. And as I was struggling, I see his feet and he's right there. And he lifts me up with his arm, gets this close to my nose, and starts to yell. Says a bunch of really unflattering things about my mom and a whole bunch of other things that I won't repeat. And I'm shocked. And he asks my superior officer's name. I tell it to him, and he walks away in disgust. And at West Point, they challenge you constantly. They give you things that are difficult to see how you're going to react. And so at times you can tell that's going on, and at other times you feel like they mean it. And it felt like this guy really meant it. So he walks away, going this way. The gentleman with my wheelchair comes back 4.5 minutes later, on time, but too late. And he puts me in the wheelchair, wheels me up, puts me in my room. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, crying. Literally and figuratively shattered. I look at my clock and it says 6:03 a.m. So I lift my leg up on the bed, pass out, feeling bad, feeling sorry for myself, frankly. Really sorry for myself. How did I get here? A couple of hours later, I wake up to the sound. I'm on the 5th floor. I wake up to the sound of activity in the area beneath me, and it is Alpha Company, A Company, coming in from a 15-mile march. They're covered in mud and rifles and big rucksacks and all kinds of stuff, and they're being drilled. They're being yelled at. You've got to do these 15 things. You've got to clean up, put your rifles away, do all this stuff, unpack your gear, and make your beds. And that was a big deal because we'd only learned how to make military-style beds the day before I got hurt. So it was all still new, the hospital corners and bouncing quarters, and it was a real challenge. So I watched that, and Bravo Company comes in, same orders. Charlie Company comes in, same orders. I'm in Delta Company, I'm in D. And literally, through that window, now I look at it as a window of opportunity, I experienced for the first time in my life what I'll call signal. It's that recognition that you can do something that is mission critical, that is really important, that'll make things better. So what I realized at that moment, even though I'm in this cast, I'm dizzy, I'm fatigued, I hadn't eaten, I could make my 11 squad mates beds. I had no idea if it was significant. I had no idea if it mattered at all. But I figured I had about 35 minutes. So I quickly hobbled over, made my bed, took about 10 minutes, and next one was a little faster. And the big challenge, frankly, was not sweating on the beds because I was soaking wet. And I improvised and I put towels on. I looked like the Michelin Man, literally. I had like this much I could see, and I'm wrapped up in towels so I don't sweat on the beds. And I hobbled around and I made the beds. My classmates, they came in, Delta Company comes in, and they look, they get up and they look, and it's like Christmas. The beds are made. We go about our business, we get down there, and the rule was, the directive was, you had to be down there in 18 minutes. Basically an impossible task. We got down there in 17 minutes. So we're elated, we're standing at attention, nobody else is there. Our superior officers aren't there. And they look down, they see that we're down there, and we're thinking we've done something incredible. They come out and there's confusion, something's amiss. And they look at us and they start firing questions. And at West Point, in your freshman year, you're allowed to say 4 things. Yes, sir. No, sir. Sir, I do not understand. And sir, there's no excuse. That's it. That's what you're allowed to say for an entire year. And they start firing questions. And I'm standing there, no ma'am, yes ma'am, ma'am, I do not understand. Just trying to figure out what's going on. There's confusion. And finally they asked the cadet next to me, Jefferson, you can be out of decorum for the next 10 seconds, tell us what happened. And he said, sir, McBride made the beds. And I see a big smile come across the face of my commanding officer, and then I knew we were okay. We find out 48 hours later, we find out that we're named the best new squad in what's called Beast Barracks. I'm named best new cadet. I'm lucky to be named that. And we are the only squad out of 64 to get down there in that exercise in under 18 minutes, and it's the first time it's been done in 20 years. They bring us out and they pin stuff on us, and they ask me to come out front, and I walk out front, and they're going to give me an award, pin something on me, and it's the same general. Same guy that yelled at me and said bad things about my mom. And he's pinning this on me, and he leans in, and he says, I'll never forget it. He says, McBride, I bet you thought I was crazy, didn't you? I said, no, sir. I did think he was crazy, and I thought he was really mean, too, but I couldn't say that. I wasn't allowed, right? So he says, I am a little bit crazy. And I'm trying to keep it together, and he says, and I'll never forget the names he used when he said that. He said, but so was Patton. So was Muhammad Ali. So was MLK. And so was Gandhi. That's what he said to me, and I never forgot it. And he said, I hear that you've discovered a little bit of your crazy, that ability to stretch, to extend yourself when you didn't think you could. He said, good for you. Now go build teams and teach them how to do the same thing. That's your job now. And he, from knocking me down to here, he built me up to here. And it stayed with me forever. What stayed with me was the importance of being a little bit crazy. Stretch yourself, to extend yourself. the importance of doing that one thing that may seem insignificant at the time, but turns out to be important. This year, as you're walking around this campus, as you're playing games, as you're acting, as you're shredding, as you're doing all kinds of other cool stuff, okay? And there's going to be an inflection point, a moment that matters more than any other moment in that endeavor that makes the difference. And that's students, faculty, administrators. Stretch yourself. Find your crazy. Be a little bit crazy. Help that person who you're not sure needs it or not with some seemingly insignificant thing that may turn out to be that compliment about your shoes that makes a difference. I am incredibly blessed and lucky to be part of this community that is Williston. By doing that, you can raise this community to even greater heights. Every day here is an incredible, incredible gift. Enjoy.
So I'll have Mr. Mann come lead us in our alma mater. I can guarantee that Nat did not share his speech or vice versa, but those two talks are miraculously attached, and I hope that you all take tidbits from both of them together to carry us forward. So we'll start with the alma mater. Mr. Mann. So Mr. Verleen will lead us out for the recession, but before that, I just want to say that once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat, and present to Brian McBride his jersey. We have a new one being sent, but this is the real deal.
you.